Okay, so in this part of the demo, we're going to look at how to work with tracing around a photographic image, and also, if there's any time in here, if it's not too long, we'll look at also how to look at the layers panel to keep your layers in order, because things can go crazy in Illustrator very quickly with your layers. So I'm going to get rid of this crazy line and go to my actual sketch demo image at this point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to import the image demo file that we have that's part of this project and place it into our design. So we're going to go up to File and go to Place. And then I want you to navigate to your demo files for this project and get the mouth image. And you're going to hit Place. And again, when you use place function, it allows you to scale up the image according to a click and drag method. So I'm just going to kind of quickly click and drag out a mouth kind of over where the mouth is on the screen. And we can very quickly see this kind of crazy open mouth image. All right, now once you place it, then it's pretty much good to go for editing at this point. And I want to point out a few things as we work with it. So first off, when you place it, you can move it around just like any other asset inside of Illustrator. Again, it's just a movable thing inside here, digital image. Now we are going to work with it in a way that sort of matches our design in the background so that it fits inside the screen area. So I'm going to rescale this object. And then I'm probably also going to make sure that I can see where I'm placing it by changing its transparency so I can see through it a little more effectively. So to change its opacity, go up here to the top options bar with your photographic image selected, and there's an opacity option. And just drop down the opacity so you can see through it to the background sketch, but still be able to see your photograph at the same time. That way you can kind of line it up, make sure it's scaled about the way it ought to be. You know, you get approximate, I'll put it that way. You don't want to distort photographs too much. This image we can get away with a little bit more on because mouths kind of vary in scale and size. So we can get away with a little bit more. All right. Now that we've got it scaled up, we're going to work with drawing over the top of it some line form work. So to do that, I'm actually going to turn off some other things inside my design so that I don't confuse it inside of Illustrator. So I'm going to come down here to my layer panel to do this. So go to your layer panel now, down in the lower right of your interface. And this is where we're going to talk a smidge about layers, just a little bit. Layers in Illustrator work dramatically different than they do in Photoshop. So you need to know this, okay? Number one, they look kind of similar in that you have like the little eyeball icon to the left of each layer that tells you how to turn them off and on. So I can quickly turn off individual sub-layers or the master layer level layer. Inside of a document in Illustrator, which is another key feature to notice, that the layers are separated differently inside here. You have a main layer or a top level layer that's called layer 1, and then you'll notice inside of layer 1 there are many separate what are called sub layers in Illustrator. So you can think of layer 1 as kind of like a folder for all of the assets for a particular area of the design. Now what's interesting about drawing with vectors is that every single independent pathway that you draw in Illustrator gets its own layer.
So it's like its own history?
It's kind of like that. I mean, it doesn't allow you to go back and forth. Like if you drew one line a certain way and then you completely erased it, it's going to go away. But this is how it keeps track of every single image asset you have currently visible in your design. So everything inside here is listed. They give you some things that you can add, like see these little circles that run down the right side of each layer? These are called targets. These targets allow you to actually activate specific layers when you click on them. They will highlight with an outer circle and they will show a little target square or a little color square next to that item to indicate that that particular vector item is highlighted in the design now. So if I click on this one right here, notice how it highlights this region of my design, this representative square that's in there. So it's important to know that you can't just click on layers to activate them. It does not select them like it does in Photoshop. Okay, if you don't click on the target, you don't actually end up selecting the item. All right. But it does make it easier to where you can now individually find items and make them present on your screen. So that's part of how layers work in here. I do recommend that when you're designing that you do rename your layers as appropriately as possible. If they all have to do with a single design element, it might be smart to create a new separate layer, target that layer, and then start drawing inside of that layer area so that you get new layers defined or new sublayers only inside this main layer. So that's one way I would recommend working with the layers panel. We'll talk more about that next time with other ways you can also use it. But let's come back to our photograph now. And we're going to look at ways to outline photographic information. So this takes a little bit of, again, sort of creative decision making on what should get outlined and what should be left behind when deciding to trace it with line art. Now I'm going to use the pencil tool because, again, it's freeform and I can draw very quickly with it. If you're someone who uses a tablet and stylus at home, you have kind of an advantage because that's a natural tool for drawing with into a computer. But I'm going to use it to outline things and features in this design like the lips. So I may use it to kind of sketch around the outer lip features here. I might even sketch around like the inner lip features to kind of give me sort of a starting place with where to work from. And then you find other areas that you want to trace around, like how much of the teeth detail do you really want, and so on. If you mess up, remember they're just vectors, so you can always redraw them. You can always edit them. And all these different things. Now, kind of the funny thing with the pencil tool is if you keep drawing with it, it will start to do a funny thing to you where it may try to connect the lines together and just make a smooth outline. So you kind of have to make your choices about where you draw it. But you can quickly get features of the mouth inside the design. So tracing out features that make sense or make sense of the shape that you're drawing. Things like the teeth. Or the lips. Well, you don't have a magnetic tool in here, for starters. So that's one reason why you can't just use a magnetic tool inside of Illustrator. There are some tools like that you can select things with. Yeah, but again, you can't really do like pixel selections in here. That's Photoshop. But you can use it to make rough outlines. Now always review your work as you go. Like you can turn off your photographic image in your layer panel. Just scroll down and find the actual photographic image that you have designed in here or you have dropped in here. Now, there's mine. It's kind of down in the list. But I can turn it off and on to see what I've got from my line work so far. And obviously if there's things that don't work out, like parts of the design that are kind of sketchy looking or not good, we always go back and we can erase them and get rid of them if you're on the right selection. Ha, ha. And clean them up as we go. So you kind of make choices about some of that stuff when you're tracing it. I don't want you to use, however, in Illustrator, it has an effect in here called image trace or live trace. Live trace is an automatic tracing function, okay? It will do for you, it will make assumptions based on the photograph you imported, what parts you want visible, based on contrast levels, which I don't think is a very good effective tool for getting detail, okay? Based on the playtime I've had with it, it has a lot of pitfalls with photographic imagery. So again, when you pull in a photograph, outline the parts that kind of help lend to the iconography of the imagery, okay? The outline of it, right? The perimeter around it, or get some of the key details from around it. Draw like shapes that you can add color to. So for instance, these lips, if I wanted it to fill in the color inside these lips, I would need to draw a whole shape out of these lips to make that possible. So for instance, I've got this upper line or this lower line that's for part of my lip, and then I have this outer line. So if I want to fuse these two lines together, I can actually use my pen tool to connect the dots to seal the shape. So I'm going to select both of these items by holding down Shift to select both of my forms. Now hang on a second. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to go to my pen tool. And what I'm going to do is go to where the 2 points are open. So on my screen, they're actually open right here and right here. And I'm going to click on the end of one, and notice that as you move your pen tool over it, the pen tool changes from a little star icon below the pen to a line. And that's telling you in Illustrator that you're ready to draw a new line out that will be directly connected to this endpoint. So I'll click once to set it, and now I can start drawing a line out, and I'm going to go to the other side to where there's another anchor point. Now the cool thing is you can actually go anywhere. If there's a nearby anchor point, you could connect to a different one instead. So I'm just going to connect to this one for now that's right across. And so now they're connected. Sweet. Now I've only sealed one half of the deal because I know it doesn't connect over here. So this is also good to know that if you stopped an anchor line or you stopped drawing a pathway at some point and you want to continue it, you don't need to draw a brand new line, okay? You can actually continue the shape to finish it off. So same method applies. We just zoom in, put our pen at the end of an anchor point, click on it to set it, and then, you know, start drawing out some new anchor points. And then connect the shape. And so now that part of the lip is filled in or connected, and so now I can apply a fill color to it evenly. So I'm going to sort of deselect and then reselect it and go up to my fill box and add a red tone to it. And so now I have a red fill color to fill in that part of the graphic. Now, again, when you're working with this, like coloring objects, like we can use the swatch here, we can use the swatch here, we can use any of these coloring tools that we've played with beforehand. But remember that when you're painting and filling in objects, if they aren't closed like this lip is, like for instance, if you go down to this lower lip that I did not seal, if I just click on this one lip and turn on the fill, it's going to parametrically fill in the area and draw a straight line from end to end, okay? Not that pretty. So that's one of those instances where if you want the color to be contained in an area, you need to draw a full shape for that, okay? But make choices on it. Some places you can get away with it and you can add a fill and it doesn't harm anything necessarily. But toy with it as you go. Another key thing that I'll tell you about designing an Illustrator, everything does not have to have a stroke line, okay? this is a rookie mistake that young designers make when playing with this tool, is that everything, just because Illustrator draws with strokes and fills, has to have a stroke and fill. It's not true. These lips, by the way, they have a stroke line that's black, but they don't have to. You could just have the red line to give it more contrast and not require this other black line as if you need to outline everything in the drawing because we can't see it for some reason. So don't do that, okay? Back off using strokes for everything. All right, so here's homework stuff for you guys with playing with the demo file. So with playing with the demo file, to finish it out, what I want you to do is come in and finish out designing the screen and outlining the mouth. So you're going to draw in the rectangles for the screen, fill them in with colors to define each of them so that we have a complete screen frame, and then we have an inner screen color, and then we have our outline for our mouth details. You know, you pick those out as you see fit for your design. And then also make sure to get an outline designed for the base of the screen. There's a little screen stand down here. And when you're coloring it all in, you are constrained to using one of the Russian poster constructivist palettes. So if you recall, to get to that, it's one of the swatches. You go to Swatch, the little library icon below the swatches, and then go to Art History and use Russian poster art. And then use one of this set from here. Don't just go and select all the random colors under the rainbow, but stick with one of these palettes, okay? If you want it to be a 4-color image, then pick one of the 4-color swatches that it gives you under Russian poster art. But apply that to your design. Find creative ways to work with it and create contrast and separation within the imagery. But do not deviate from the swatch. Stick to it. Let it be your ruler, okay, for your design. All right. That's all that we're going to do for this particular demo. Next class time, we'll check in and look at other details inside of Illustrator, okay?